Tears in Spain, Princess Leonor's emotional goodbye before the royal wedding. They said every princess dreams of her wedding day. But no one talks about the heartbreak that comes before it. The silence before the vows. The goodbye that changes everything. Before the crown, before the celebration, there were tears in Spain. Princess Leonor, Spain's future queen, stood in the quiet halls of Zarzuela Palace, her home since birth. The palace that raised her, watched her grow, and now, would watch her leave. The air was heavy that morning. The corridors that once echoed with laughter now carried the sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate, and uncertain. Leonor wasn't walking toward a royal event. She was walking toward a goodbye. Her wedding to Prince Christian of Denmark was only days away. The world was preparing for a fairy tale. Cameras, headlines, and royal watchers called it the union of two dynasties. But behind the golden doors, there was something the world didn't see. A young woman, torn between duty and heart. She paused outside her sister Sophia's room. The door was slightly open. Inside, Sophia sat on her bed, holding a small velvet box. Leonor smiled faintly. It was the necklace their grandmother once gave them, the one they used to wear while pretending to be queens in their childhood games. Sophia looked up. Her eyes were red, but she smiled. "You're really leaving, aren't you?" Leonor nodded. For a while. They hugged, tightly, wordlessly. The kind of hug that says everything words cannot. Outside, Queen Letizia stood by the balcony, watching the morning sun rise over Madrid. She had been awake since dawn. Not as a queen, but as a mother. Her daughter's wedding was supposed to be her proudest moment. But that pride came with pain. Leonor approached her quietly. "Mama." Letizia turned, eyes glistening. "You remind me of myself when I was your age," she whispered. "But stronger, kinder, more ready than I ever was." For a moment, neither spoke. They simply looked at each other, mother and daughter, queen and heir, bound by blood and destiny. Then came the voice of King Felipe, steady, deep, but laced with emotion. "Leonor." She turned, standing tall. For the first time, she didn't see her father as the King of Spain, but as a man saying goodbye to his little girl. "I am proud of you," he said. "Not just because you carry the future of Spain, but because you carry it with grace." Leonor's eyes filled with tears. "I'll come back," she whispered. Felipe smiled softly. "You'll always have Spain in your heart. But remember, love doesn't make you weaker. It's what makes you worthy of the crown." That was the moment she broke. The future queen cried, not out of fear, but out of love. The kind of love that stretches across borders and duty. Later that day, Leonor walked through the palace gardens one last time. The roses were in full bloom, just as they were every spring. Each step she took seemed to echo memories, her first lessons, her laughter with Sophia, her mother's stories, her father's hand on her shoulder. Every petal seemed to whisper goodbye. That night, she stood before her childhood room. The walls still carried pictures, notes, small things that made her who she was. She picked up an old journal from the desk, its pages filled with dreams written in neat, youthful handwriting. At the bottom of one page, in faded ink, were the words she had once written years ago. "Maybe being a queen means giving everything for others, even when your heart wants to stay." She smiled through tears. The next morning, Madrid awoke to the sound of church bells. Crowds gathered as the royal car pulled away from the palace gates. Inside, Leonor waved one last time, her face calm, but her eyes glassy with emotion. Spain watched in silence. It wasn't just a goodbye to a daughter of the nation, it was the passing of an era. As the car turned the corner, the palace grew still. Letizia stood beside Felipe, her hand clutching his. Sophia leaned against her mother, tears quietly rolling down her cheeks. And somewhere, in the distance, Leonor looked back, just once, at the country that shaped her. That moment, caught by no camera, unseen by the world, was the truest one of all. It wasn't about the crown. It wasn't about duty. It was about love, the kind that hurts, the kind that endures. Days later, when Leonor arrived in Denmark, she carried that love with her. But that final night in Spain stayed with her, the scent of roses, her mother's words, her father's pride, her sister's tears. At her wedding rehearsal, she stood beside Prince Christian, smiling. Yet, for a heartbeat, she closed her eyes and saw Madrid's golden light, heard the faint echo of Spanish bells, and felt home once more. The world saw a radiant bride. But only Leonor knew the story behind her calm smile, the tears that fell before the crown, the heartbreak before the celebration, the quiet goodbye that made her stronger. In Spain, people still talk about that morning. They say the sky over Madrid was unusually soft that day, as if the heavens themselves paused to listen. And somewhere in Zarzuela Palace, a mother looks out her window, whispering, "Mi niña," knowing that her daughter may be far, but never gone. For every queen's journey begins with a goodbye. And sometimes, that goodbye becomes the most beautiful part of the story.